Thanks.
Hi, my name is Michael.
I'm Anisha.
I'm Oliver.
And I'm Victor, and today we'll be discussing the influence of art and the impact it has on the Venice Beach community. We are all four ethnographical field researchers who have a very big interest in art, and especially Venice art and its culture.
As most of you in the audience know from living in LA, Venice Beach is a well-known cultural hotspot for those who do not completely conform to society. But Venice Beach was not always the way it is now. Starting in the 1940s, the city of Los Angeles actually destroyed the Venice Beach amusement pier. And this sent the Venice Beach's economy into a downward spiral. All the inhabitants basically had no more work, as most of them had worked in building and running the amusement pier. So, from there, in the 1950s, and especially in 1951, the city of Los Angeles placed a ban on abstract art. This ban on abstract art forced artists to move to the very edges of society to be able to create their art without encountering law enforcement. And this continued through the 1960s, including multiple events that basically kept the artists wanting to rebel and kept the counterculture going. And through this time, and also the 1960s, Venice played the host of a whole bunch of different ethnic groups. One such was the hippies. The hippies moved in, and Venice Beach was the site of many hippie protests. Also, Venice Beach at this time became the destination for bohemian culture in all of Southern California. From there, in the 1970s, Venice Beach moved into another direction. It became a huge hotspot for art and all the other types of things, with a whole new wave of artists coming in. But this hot streak did not last long, as commercialism took over in Venice Beach. Property prices rose with this huge boom in art, and therefore storefront spaces became more expensive, and residences in Venice Beach, the property prices boomed. This meant that many artists had to move off of Venice Beach, and therefore had to display their art not in an actual store or gallery on the beach boardwalk, but just on the beach boardwalk itself, right by the ocean. Now, this creates an interesting culture in Venice Beach. You have artists displaying their own work and also selling other handmade goods, contrasting with a whole bunch of more touristy shops selling t-shirts, hats, pipes for tobacco use only, as well as a whole slew of different things, plus a little bit of artwork here and there. And in Venice Beach, most of the artists there, especially the graffiti, are not paid to do so. But there were some artists, especially one by the name of R. Kronk, who were paid to do murals at Venice Beach. R. Kronk originally started creating his murals in the state of Hawaii, and then moved to Los Angeles and painted Venice Beach. For our methods of how we did our research, we went to Venice Beach on Tuesday, April 15th, between the times of 1:30 and 4:30. And to select the artwork that we wanted to use, we basically looked for whatever caught our eye and whatever looked professional. And this was a good criteria because not all professional artwork is necessarily good artwork in our opinion, but also we wanted to see what the street artists had present. And for taking notes and taking pictures, we use our cell phones. We've not used any professional cameras because we want to keep it very informal and very low-key to not disturb the artists working there, because many of them are very much against the media.
Our group took an edict approach to participation, which means that we mostly observed the art and the artists without actively participating in the creation or selling of any art. We essentially took a participation by observation approach to our ethnographic research. However, to further our understandings of the art and the culture and its influence on Venice Beach, we interviewed people who were actively involved in the creation and selling of art, such as street artists, tattoo artists, and art vendors along the boardwalk. We took an informal interview approach to coincide with the laid-back nature of Venice Beach. And we did not film our interviews because many of our interviewees were uncomfortable with being filmed, as some of their actions may not have been illegal, even though it was culturally accepted in Venice. We then took our notes based on our analysis and our interviews and related them to our acquired research to form our key themes.
We found 3 significant themes in our analysis of Venice Beach art. The first being that art is used for advertisement and consumerism purposes. The second is that the embodiment of, or the art as a whole is an embodiment of the Venice culture. And lastly, that the street art in Venice is very similar to traditional art that is usually placed in museums. First, I'll be talking about art's role in advertisement and consumerism. So when we were there and we saw the paintings, we noticed that there were a variety of goals and purposes used for the art, one including advertisement. And there was actually a great deal of portraits on buildings, such as this Dos Equis photo where it was advertisements for businesses. Also, there were ones for Corona and some for just food vending like hamburgers and hot dogs, and all this was used just to lure customers in to buy their products. And these were apparent everywhere, and it plays into the idea of art being used to manipulate it for consumerism purposes. And along the boardwalk, majority of the businesses employed street artists in order to advertise for their building. And we even interviewed a tattoo artist who said that at one point they even just like shut down their building and had artists come and design the entire exterior of the building in order to advertise for their tattoo parlor. And then another example of the consumerism is all the vendors along the boardwalk. They are selling handmade items such as paintings, statues, bracelets, and the list just goes on and on. And according to Diener, in an article made in 2007, he stated that they just come every day pretty much and just they speak their minds and try selling their products in an effort to get the word out. And there was even some cases where they would charge you just for taking a photo of their statues. And this is all highlights the unity that art culture brings to the consumerism portion of Venice Beach.
So our second main point was arts as an embodiment of Venice culture. This was especially evident to our group when we studied the influence art had in the bringing of the Bohemian culture to Venice Beach in the 20th century. The term Bohemian refers to artists or musicians who do not live by conventional rules or practices. According to Schrank in his 2004 article in American Quarterly magazine entitled The Art of the City, Venice became a center of the Bohemian culture within Los Angeles during the 20th century due to Bohemian artists and musicians which produced and sold their art along the boardwalk in Venice. Over time, the Bohemianization of art spread to the people and the residents and the visitors of Venice Beach, which further is evidence of art's embodiment of the culture as a whole. Today, the unique characteristics depicted in both the artwork and the people of Venice have Bohemian elements. The people and the artwork decorate the Venice Beach with their flamboyant colors and their expressive attitudes, and they embody the root of the Bohemian ideology, which is ultimately an expression of unconventional ideas and disregard for mainstream society. Venice culture as a whole has essentially bought into this ideology. This is further evidenced by our interview with the tattoo artist, in which she communicated to us that the most popular forms of tattoos either had to do the most popular forms of tattoos that the people around Venice asked for either had to do with beach aspects or had Bohemian elements in the tattoos. Those were the most popular, and that essentially shows that the people are buying into the Bohemian ideology of anti-mainstream of that subculture. In addition to that, much of the artwork present on the boardwalk were depictions of Venice itself, So, for instance, one of the buildings we saw, the artwork on the building was a depiction of that building, along with the other people and just beliefs that exist along the boardwalk, and other art forms of artwork depicting the people, both the residents and the tourists, who contribute to the Venice culture. So by the art depicting the people itself and Venice itself as a unified society, it shows the core beliefs of what Venice was founded on in the Bohemian culture, and that is ultimately how art embodies the Venice culture.
Lastly, the themes of Venice street art are similar in many ways to those of traditional art forms found in museums. In Elizabeth Wilson's 1999 scholarly essay titled The Bohemianization of Mass Culture, she draws a parallel between Bohemian type of art in Venice Beach and the culturally standard art found in galleries in San Francisco, because both evoked similar reactions from their audience. The differences between the art forms is essentially made up of social constructs, because there is only a difference in the way the art is perceived for both forms of arts. Kronk created his more traditionally types of arts in Venice Beach to highlight the similarities between the two types of arts, thus proving that the two art forms are not as different as perceived. While we were conducting our observations, we noticed that, according to the audience, street art is considered messy to some because of the mediums used, including spray paints, metals, scrap metal, scraps of leftover or discarded clothing, and walls. We also learned that graffiti-style art is not considered real art, but is instead considered amateuristic and vandalism. The younger generation is more open, as we found in our research, to appreciating all the art forms, while the older generations were more skeptical of the art not typically considered classical. However, the perception of art found in museums is similar to the reactions of street art. The audience reacted to the colors and styles of art in both places similarly, only finding differences in the materials used. In addition, the museum works of arts in San Francisco were critiqued as harshly as the word art in Venice Beach. In conclusion, art plays a significant role in the Venice culture. It serves as a consumerism tool, it embodies the general aspects of Venice culture, and it has significant similarities to traditional art. We hope that after listening to our presentation, our audience will be more accepting of all types of art and not disregard any type of art because it is different. Thank you.